Hello and welcome to the Brutal Iron Gym podcast, where our goal is to cut through the BS and deliver the brutal truth about topics related to health and happiness. Today's podcast number 1447. The topic is Q&A and the title is, Am I Doing Everything I Can? This question actually came up with one of my clients recently, so we talked through it and I thought it would make a good podcast. Essentially our conversation kind of boiled down to two questions. What are the areas that influence my progress? And then in each area, am I actively pursuing a new action or a new habit? So we talked about something that can help us kind of, get more context with this and give us some structure to think this through. We talked about in a recent podcast, number 1442, so just a couple podcasts ago, we discussed 6 areas that can impact progress towards a physical performance goal or a health goal, an aesthetics goal. The podcast was titled, What's Your Grade? I think that's it. Yeah, What's Your Grade? And we talked about 6 different areas, and we talked about the idea of giving ourselves a grade like an A to an F, how well we think we're doing. So the 6 areas were sleep, nutrition, training, hydration, stress management, supplements. So the client and I kind of talked through this. They listen to the podcast regularly, and we this kind of naturally kind of transitioned in our conversation to these topics. And we said, okay, well, it makes sense that if I want to give myself a grade, I have to know, what are the qualifications I have to meet for each of these categories to get an A. So if I want to get an A, what do I have to do to get an A? So for this client, we actually sat down and talked it through, which I love doing. I love this stuff. So sleep, real quick, what the person's goal doesn't matter in the sense that what we're going to talk about is specific for that goal. It's just specific for the person. But just to give you context, this person is trying to gain muscle mass as fast as possible. They are pretty lean, so they don't necessarily need to get leaner. They just don't want to gain a bunch of body fat either. They just want to get jacked, super freaking jacked, but still pretty lean. So our goal, we said, was for sleep was 8 hours a night. For this person, that is possible. I understand for some people, they might say that that's completely bonkers and you can't do 8 hours a night. What I'm listing right now was the standards that we set for this client. These are not standards that everybody has to do. By no means. So it's just, what is this client capable of? And what will it take for them to get the amount of progress that they want at the speed that they want? So for everyone, these answers are very different. Very different. So again, what I'm about to name does not mean that you have to do these. Okay, you would want to sit down and say, okay, if I'm looking at my sleep, what would be kind of the best that I think I could do consistently? So if I have to do blah, 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 and I can't get into, I can't even get time to relax until 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I can't just go right to bed. I got time to unwind. Okay, fine. Figure that out. What's the most meaningful way for you to unwind? What's the shortest way that you can unwind? And figure that out for yourself. So you got to kind of go through this. But for this client, we determined 8 hours a night is a good goal for sleep. Nutrition, they have their calorie and protein targets. They got to hit those. They have their distribution. They have to hit that. So this client does not do the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, which I've talked about before. They do the quarter, half, half. Half, quarter, quarter. There you go. Half, quarter, quarter. And what that means is in the kind of 5 to 6 hour time block of the day that they weight train, they have half of their calories and protein. Then in the other 5 to 6 hour time blocks away from their training, they only have a quarter of their calories and protein, and the other one a quarter of their calories and protein. So they're very heavily distributed around the time of their workout. This is going to help them maximize performance, maximize recovery, but minimize body fat accumulation. So freaking awesome. Great for them. And we also pay attention to carb and fat timing for this person. So they know they're supposed to eat carbohydrates as their main energy source in the meals around their workouts. They're supposed to eat fats as their main energy source in the meals away from the workouts. This is what this person can do. They can do this. They do it on a fairly regular basis. So we said, okay, this is something that we can do. We can set as a standard. Now, training, they train 6 days a week. This is what they love. They want to make a profession out of it, so 6 days a week. Hydration, they aim for 3 liters of water or some kind of non-carbonated fluid every day. And then stress management, they actually sit down on Sundays and they plan their week, plan out kind of like what their foods will look like, when they might be able to work out based on what they have to do for work. And then at the beginning of each day, part of their morning routine, they set a 5-minute timer and they actually plan their day out. Maybe what you planned on Sunday might change by Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning. So they plan their week, then they plan their day. And then at the end of the day, they set another 5-minute timer and they do a reflection where they look through the day and say, okay, what was my plan? What actually happened? If there was something that went wrong, meaning I missed a goal or I missed something, why did that occur? And what could I have done to kind of make that better? So I love it, love it, love it. And then we have a rule for them that in their reflection, there's always a find a solution. So if there was something that went wrong, they have to find a solution. They can't just say, yeah, I missed my second meal today. Bummer. Well, why? What the hell? Okay, you missed it. I'm glad you were alive and you noticed that. But why did we miss it and what could we do to not miss that ever again? That kind of thing. So I asked them to find a solution. We've practiced that a lot. So this is what they do for stress management. They plan their week, they plan their day, the reflection at the end of the day, and then they find a solution if there was anything that was kind of missed on that day. They have, by the way, said that they absolutely love this routine because it has helped them feel more in control of their life, and they feel that they're more creative in their thinking, and they realize a lot more of their day is in their control in respect of how they respond to their day, not necessarily that the day actually goes as planned. So they've absolutely loved this, and they said this is the most invaluable aspect of us working together, which is pretty cool. I really love that. And then supplements-wise, they have daily supplements they take, which are a multivitamin, a joint supplement, and a digestion supplement. Since they do eat a lot of calories and protein in that time frame around their workout, we take digestive aids, digestive enzymes. And then they have an intra/post-workout drink that has L-leucine and L-glutamine. L-leucine is an amino acid regulator for muscle synthesis, like muscle creation. You have to make sure you have enough L-leucine in your diet and regular foods, since they're wanting to maximize muscle tissue. Since we create a lot of muscle damage by training 6 days a week, we do take L-leucine, and then L-glutamine is helpful for recovery. So right now, those are the standards that they're looking for in each of those categories. If he's meeting those standards, well, we determine if holding that standard is best or if we have room to improve. So, for example, we talked about sleep. We said, okay, 8 hours a night is great. And then he asked, he goes, should I sleep 9 hours if I can? And I answered back, I said, well, assuming that the damage in the training is correct, assuming our nutrition is correct, the extra sleep may or may not help much. So it's one of those things where they could get some extra, see how they feel. If they start to feel anxious about being behind in work, well, then maybe we got to drop back down to 8 hours. If they can manage, whatever anxiety and stuff it might come up by sleeping 9 hours a night. If they feel more recovered for workouts, or if they notice themselves growing more, then we would try that. So we're not afraid to experiment and just see what we can do. And then if they're not meeting the standards, we determine why. And we analyze if there's anything we can do to increase our adherence. Right now, this person isn't missing a damn thing. They're freaking A++. They're crushing it all. So when you look through it this way, to me, it sounds super simple. Okay, I have 6 categories. What is my best case scenario that I can do for each of these categories? And then that becomes my A. And am I doing that? Am I adhering to what my best case scenario is? If I am, great. If I'm not, figure out why and fix it. That sounds super simple, but that's the point. The point is to make it simple. We don't want it to feel and sound complex, because then we're going to feel like we can't do anything about it, or we're overwhelmed by it. So the whole point of us discussing this, the whole point of us making a framework, is to make it feel simple. Is it simple to make adaptations and corrections when you struggle to adhere to a standard? No, that's not simple. That's very challenging. But we want to make it simple to recognize where we can improve. And then how to make those improvements, that is challenging at times. But we just want to make it simple to know. To go back to that question, am I doing everything I can? We want to make the answer to that very simple to determine. So for him to make his greatest progress, these are the standards that we know will help him do so. So if you are wondering, am I doing everything I can? Well, what are you doing in each of these areas? Are you even paying attention to each of these areas? Have you been paying attention to hydration? Have you even thought about stress management? A lot of people, they feel stressed all day, and that's why they miss a meal, or that's why they can't get their training in, because they're super stressed and they're flustered and they're bouncing around from this and that, and the day just gets away from them. Everyone on the planet has the same amount of time to use, and everyone, I promise you, I've worked with over 3,000 people, everyone feels overwhelmed. Everyone has more to do than they have time to do it. Every single person I have ever worked with struggles with fitting in what they need to fit in, mixed in with what they want to fit in. Every single person. I have laughed because I've worked with people who've retired, and they said, like, after retirement, they're like, I don't know how the hell I did it. I still struggle right now, even without my job, to fit everything in that I need to do. How the hell did I do it with a job? And I laugh because I am not retired yet, so to me it sounds a little ridiculous. I trust these people and I believe them 100%. But for someone to tell me, I don't have to do 40 hours a week worth of things anymore, but I still have no time, that is just funny. So please, if you are retired, don't hate me. I do believe you. But it just goes to show that everyone feels the pressure of time. Everyone does. It's stress management. It's how you manage your resources, manage your time. And it's not that you're trying to make more time. It's just how well do you use the time you have. We have to manage our energy. It's just organizing our day to fit everything in that we want to fit in, mixed in with the crap that gets thrown at us that we need to fit in. Right? So, continuing in this thought is the idea, if you want to know, are you doing everything you can? Think of those two questions again. What are the areas that influence my progress? In each of those areas, am I actively pursuing a new action or habit? And what I mean by that is, if you're just ho-hum standing still, like, yeah, I'm doing everything I should do. Well, are you happy with your rate of progress? If you are, great, keep doing it. If you aren't, and you're like, well, I want to make faster progress, I'd like to make more progress. Well, then you have to do more. If I want more, I have to do more. If I want new, I have to do new. All this, makes total sense, right? So if I'm meeting what my requirements are, but I want more, I have to do more. So in each of the areas that influence your progress, are you doing well? If you're falling short in an area, analyze why and find a way to address it. And then continue to try to figure out how to address it until there's a way that you find that works and sticks. It's something you can be consistent with. If you're on point, but you want faster progress, ask yourself, what's the next step I could take in each of these areas? Sleep. Can I go to bed earlier? Maybe not. Well, then can you at least get better quality of sleep? Nutrition. I'm tracking my numbers. I'm consistent with my numbers. But what does your distribution look like? Do you tend to put in most of your calories at the end of the day? Are you also eating carbohydrates when you're mostly busy and fats when you're less busy? That helps. Get you leaner but still maintain good caloric intake. Or have you lowered your sugar intake from times away from your workouts? There's no need for you to eat 30 grams of sugar at a meal that you're not even about to go be active at. All these little things can help reduce water retention, and they can help reduce body fat even without reducing calories, just because you have a better usage of the calories you're already eating. Training. Are you tracking what you're doing in your workouts? That way you're ensuring that you're making progress in each exercise from week to week. Are you pushing each working set to good form failure, or maybe like 1 or 2 reps short, but you're not just stopping at the number because that's what the number was, when really you could do many more reps? Are you just trying to blitz through to get to the rep count, or are you actually paying attention to the quality of every single repetition? Hydration. Do you drink enough fluid throughout the day? Or do you have lulls where you kind of get busy, you don't drink a lot, then all of a sudden you find at the end of the day you're trying to pour it all in? Stress management. Am I letting my stress get in the way of me fulfilling my actions for each of these categories? If so, I got to manage that. I got to get on top of that. Supplements. Do I take my supplements regularly? If you have extra financial wiggle room, is there a supplement that maybe you can add to what you're doing? So these are questions that we can ask ourselves, and we can dive deeper into if we think there's a way that we can maybe improve them. So in podcast 1442, I gave you kind of extra podcasts. I'm going to give them to you right now so you don't have to go back and listen to that. But a sleep podcast is 1149. It's a mindset podcast titled Creating Healthier Sleep Pattern. For nutrition, there's podcast 1232, which is a nutrition podcast titled Start Here. Training, we have podcast 1333. It's a training podcast titled Importance of Exercise Specificity. And it kind of talks through what's most important in our training. Is it consistency or specificity? Hint, hint, it's both. Hydration, podcast 261, nutrition podcast titled Importance of Hydration on Health, Energy, and Performance. If you have trouble finding any of these old ones, just Google search Podbean, Brutal Iron Gym. And then on the right side of that page, in the middle of the page, there's a search function you can use. Also, stress management. We have podcast 1023, Mindset podcast. It's titled Stress Management, Options and Priorities. And then for supplements, we have podcast 1384. It's a nutrition podcast titled My Most Recommended Supplements. So again, if you're asking, am I doing everything I can? Ask yourself those 2 questions that I talked through with my client. What are the areas that influence my progress? In each area, am I actively pursuing a new habit or a new action? If you're falling short in an area, analyze why, find a way to address it, and continue to freaking find it out and figure it out until you find a way that fixes it. If you're on point, but you want faster progress, ask yourself, what's the next step I could take in each area? Listening to this shared podcast would be a great way to kind of figure out what those next steps might be. Awesome. Well, if you have any questions, if you want me to help you kind of make up your own standards and all that kind of stuff, just reach out. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. I truly appreciate everybody, and I hope that you always get what you need from the podcast. If you ever have a specific question or a request, again, you can always just email us at brutalirongym@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to answer the question for you. Awesome. Okay, well, if you like today's podcast or the podcast in general, please consider sharing it. The more people we share the podcast with, the more people we can help. That's basically the whole goal and why we're doing this. So thank you to the patrons of the podcast, people who financially support the podcast. The podcast is well over $1,000 a year for hosting costs. I give an hour to it every day, and I want to keep it for free. So I really appreciate the donations that help cover some of that cost. Thank you very much. Really helps a lot. If you do want to donate, you can do so at our website, which is www.brutalirongym.com. There's an option there for a one-time donation, monthly donation, yearly donation, even just $5 a month. It does add up and it does help. So thank you to those who do donate. Also, if you like the information we share in our podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube under the name Brutal Iron Gym. If you have any questions, feedback, suggestions, anything you want to know, let us know at our email at brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.